There isn't a wait. Well, Rob, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Long time no see.
It's extraordinarily.
A lot of
Do we
years.
really ever talk? I don't think we ever really talked.
I was gonna mention that, like, I knew you growing up, but I don't think we ever really like had a friendship or really talked. Or so we were one grade apart at St. John's growing up.
Yeah.
So 1 year when you're a kid is everything, right? But now I'm happy to see that you're doing your thing and I'm doing my thing, and we're gonna get into that today. That should be a fun conversation.
Yeah.
So, where are you at nowadays? Because I know when I was talking to you, like trying to get this scheduled, you said you were going to be home for this time frame. So, and I know you're traveling a lot. So, where are you located mostly?
Right now, I just moved into Salt Lake City in end of September. I had a bunch of trips. So I did like Texas, Antarctica, Africa. I did a whole bunch of baloney for about 4 months. Like now I'm actually pretty settled in Salt Lake. I was living in a van before. Now I actually have a house and like running water and like a fridge, which is pretty fucking sweet. I gotta be honest. It's full-time van life sounds cool until you realize how cool it is to have grid power. But yeah, Salt Lake City full-time now. I travel a decent amount. I try to see my family once every other month. So I'll do the parents 1 month and then I'll do my brother the next month and kind of just teeter-totter. So I'm always traveling.
So, where's your brother?
Brother's in North Carolina.
Okay. So you guys are all over.
All over. Parents Jersey, brother North Carolina. I got cousins in Florida and Italy and Africa. Wow. I try to see as many people as I can, but usually the immediate family once every other month.
So you've been all over. How did Salt Lake City become like the final spot that you think you're gonna set up?
It kind of just made sense, right? So I was traveling full time in the band, and I met a lot of people. I made a lot of friends. A lot of them did live in the Utah area. And I was in Utah for an extended period of time during the summer training for a longer run that I was doing. So I spent a lot of time there. And then my roommate, or my now roommate friend who I was traveling with in a van with, stopped doing van life and got a house to rent. So it was just an easy setup of just renting a room. I didn't have to do any credit checks. I didn't have to deal with any sort of income issues. So that just made sense.
Yeah, I want to get into your real estate background because I found that so fascinating. But before we get into that, for the people viewing, if you just want to give a little bit of background, like from, we talked a little bit about your early life, but going into the military and just your history there.
Okay. So I graduated high school 2016, joined the Navy, didn't go in until 2017. I trained up for selection programs before I left, wound up getting a SEAL contract, going to BUDS, not making it through, eventually becoming a diver. Worked on a SEAL team as a diver for about 4.5 years, did 6 years in the Navy, got out. During that time while I was in the Navy, I started investing in real estate. Kind of just made sense. I saw my friends and how unhappy they were. So I was like, why do I want to do 20 years in the military and be like that? So did my real estate, sold all of it, moved to Florida for a girl, didn't work out. And then I had all this money that I had made from the real estate and no responsibilities, no job, like no nothing. So I asked a few mentors and they're like, you're never going to have this opportunity again. You literally have no responsibilities, no family, no nothing connecting you anywhere. So I traveled a lot in a van and also just normal standard travel throughout the world, and then wound up in Salt Lake City.
Complete freedom as you go.
Yeah, dude.
That's crazy.
It's cool. It's very different. I tell people it's always greener on the other side. If you go too far one side or too far the other side, it's usually never good, and you'll start to feel the longing for the latter.
I highlight that a lot, the yin and yang of life. It's like there's an opposite to everything, basically. So no matter how good something seems, there's always a negative, always, to it.
Yeah.
But you mentioned how you didn't make it through BUDS. I'm wondering what's the story there. My brother's in the Marines right now, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I joined when I was 18. I turned 19 in boot camp. I was really young going into BUDS. I was a pretty decent athlete, and I was pretty set up for BUDS at that point. I got a little too cocky, and I became what's known as a boat crew leader. So in BUDS, you're split up into boat crews, which is like groups of 7, and you go into you do everything together as a boat crew, but you go into the harder evolutions, which is really where your boat crew matters, together. So there's this thing called boats, just boats on heads, where you get this 300-pound boat.
Who's going to carry the boats?
Yeah, who's going to carry the boats there? And you hear Goggins say that, and you put it on your head, and then you run in a line, and essentially it's a race, and it's kind of like a dog eat dog, like beat the shit out of other boat crews and just try to be as far in front as you can so the instructors don't just shit down your soul. I became a boat crew leader, sucked at any sort of leadership. We went from 7 people to 4 people underneath the boat. So 300 pounds got real heavy when you had 3 less people. And I threw up, shat myself, pissed myself at the same time. I was in a rough spot. And then just like as a young guy, like not knowing too much, your mind creates like reasons to get out of situations, which I learned in the future. The hindsight's always 20/20. So there I was like, hey, you got a good girlfriend, like you could have a normal life, like it's gonna be like this forever. It's not gonna end here at Bud's, like your whole job's gonna be this shit. And it was just essentially just making up excuses for me to leave, which now looking back at it is a bunch of baloney.
I am completely shocked to hear you say that, because we're going to get into things that you've done, like fasting for 14 days, running 100 miles in the Antarctic. Maybe this situation spurred you to be able to push through things like that?
I guess we could dive into that, but essentially, yeah, I pooped myself, peed, threw up at the same time, and all this is bullshit, and then just quit. And yeah, that was a quitting Bud story.
So not a glowing recommendation from that story of joining the military. Would you advise a kid who's not certain about their future, don't know if they want to go to college, to enter the military?
I talked to a lot of people about this. I think that if you have no other options, join the military. But I think that you should exhaust your options prior. And I understand if you don't want to go to college, awesome. There's a whole lot of other things that you can do. I was privileged with the way I went through the military and the programs I went through and what I was able to accomplish. That's not normal. Like the route that I had, which we can get into, and like if you want to go into the military, how can you expedite your process to make a shit ton of money, do your job, do something epic, and then get out? But I would say assess your options. Yeah, Hoo-yah, fucking ego and nationalism is awesome, but you could do a whole lot for your country as a civilian, as much as you can in the military. You want to do something? Okay, awesome. Make a shit ton of money and start a charity, or make a shit ton of money and be able to do something for other people. That's another option that you could do. So I just try to emphasize to people that sounds cool, understand it's not as shiny as you think it is, and that there's assess your options before you go.
So one of the things I saw you mention on another podcast was spending 45 days on a submarine, I believe.
Yeah, it sucked.
So let's hear about that.
This was 2018. We were essentially, I was a diver attached to a SEAL team. The office is known as SEAL Delivery Vehicle Team, SDV for short. Essentially, you deploy SEALs underwater into different areas and you bring them back, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff that happens, yada, yada, yada. But you have to be on a submarine for it. So we got on, it was supposed to be like 15 to 16 days. And we finished our op. It eventually was like, hey, it's gonna take about 22 days. And then that sub got tasked to go somewhere else. And we had already finished our op, but we couldn't thieve anymore because we weren't in the area to be able to just pop up. Because that's usually somewhere, yeah, you were somewhere you're not supposed to be. So we just were stuck there, and it got really rough. Specifically, we're not a part of the boat, right? Like we're not attached to a boat, we're a different office. So we come in and we eat other people's food and we take up other people's space. And some people, like, for example, when we're on a boat, like other people have to hot rack that are a part of the sub. That means that 2 people share one bed. So they're on 8-hour rotations. So rotation one guy will be sleeping in that bed, has to take all the shit apart, and another guy. So like the overall climate towards us being on the boat is negative. And then because of the op, we would eat first because we would usually dive right after the food. So they don't change the schedule. So now we're eating first too, even though we're not doing anything anymore. So people get mad. The oxygen generator broke. So then we weren't allowed to get out of the bed after like around day 25. You were only allowed to get out of bed to eat. And they got real mad and they clogged up 3 of the 4 toilets. So there's only one shitter for about 144 meals.
Oh my God.
They broke the dryers Because like
Who was they?
so the boat, like the sailors that are on the boat. Yeah. So they essentially, the more things you break, the more excuses you have to kind of like go back is what they think, but turns out that's not how that works. So everyone's like hanging their clothes up to dry them. And then eventually we were out there for so long, we didn't have enough food. So we started having food rations, which was 3 raviolis and 1 scoop of rice per meal.
Oh my God.
Wasn't very pleasant.
I was going to ask you, like, was there a deadline, like, when you have to be up? Like, because you're only going to bring a certain amount of, like, food and water and whatever.
So you can go a long time on rations. They had like that, but then after that, they have a whole bunch of ingredients like baked bread, and they could just keep on baking bread for a long time. And there's also like, you could have canned beans. You could fit a lot of canned beans on a sub. So stuff like that definitely made it a little bit more difficult. The climate with people towards the boat, like we would try to like hook them up and like give them stuff or teach them things. There's really like a lot of them just didn't like us. And it was rough. Eventually you had like sores in the bottom of your butt from laying on your bed for so long as you were on it.
That's sort of, yeah.
It's like horrible.
People get.
Oh, it is horrible.
I don't think I've ever seen like a military sub now that I'm thinking about it. And you said there was what, 140 people in there?
Yeah.
Pretty big.
Yeah. So for anyone who knows subs, there's 2 different types that we would used to go on. One's called an Ohio class, which is known as a boomer, and then one's a Virginia class, which is known as a fast attack. The Virginia class is the smaller one. That's what we were on. And it's like the hallways are about 2.5 feet wide. Your beds are about the same. Your beds are about 6 feet long. That's like kind of like it. Like we would have like essentially 36 people in about the size of this room, like kind of like sleeping. Maybe it's a lot longer, so like 6 feet each side. And then we would have like, you remember like in class, we'd have like folders to like prevent each other from cheating. Like that's essentially what was in between the beds.
Wow. And I can't imagine there's any, like, what is there to do? Like, there's no phone, there's no TV. I would imagine that
We had like a little setup with like a little Xbox.
Oh, okay.
And then we would like watch movies and everyone would be like watching kind of from their bed and just like listening. You could play Uno, and like there's this game called Spades, which is played a lot on boats. Anyone who's in the military will know what Spades is. Gamble a lot.
I was gonna say poker.
Yeah, that happens a decent amount. And then like no one like actually honors their bets when they get off the boat. Oh, dude. I was like, dude, you owe me $400. But yeah, do that. After the oxygen candle started getting like lit up, we weren't allowed to work out anymore, which kind of sucked. But yeah, there's not really much to do. Read a lot. You learn a lot on subs. I think the majority of what I do today, or the advancements that I was able to receive from these trips, were specifically from the extraordinary isolation that I had on different trips.
And what is your actual, I don't know if you talk about it, but what was your actual purpose? Because you're not going to go and have 140 people leave the sub and invade somewhere. So like, what are you doing? What is the military like objective there?
For like why we were on?
Yeah.
We would just do whatever they told us to. So like we would be on there, they'd bring on some gear, we'd go to a place, we'd go do whatever the thing was, and then we would come back, and then they would try to get to safe waters for us to be able to get off the boat. But if not, we would just stay on.
Interesting.
That's the
and I think I saw you say that you read Rich Dad Poor Dad while you were on the sub.
I did. That was the first book I ever read. I fucking hated it.
I'm reading now. I'm trying to get into it.
I swear, like, it's a love-hate relationship. I hate the concept of reading, but I like the amount of information I'm able to get. Somebody essentially, for most books, spent their whole life gathering information, and they put it in like a 5-hour read for you to learn. It's like cheat codes. It's like you bought one of those cheat books that you used to play for like video games growing up. So I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and at the time, my now ex had this internship where she was making like $80 an hour, some ridiculous construction internship, and she was making more money than I was, and I was like, that like can't happen. Like I'm not being the breadwinner. So I read that book, and I was like, okay, that's how I make more money. Just buy a house, rent it out.
So yeah, let's get into your real estate venture that you had, because you're all out now still, or are you back?
I am fully out. I'll probably be back in towards the end of this year, but right now I'm fully out.
So did you play the rates? Like with COVID, I know the rates dropped to like nothing, and now they're high.
It was awesome.
Are you playing that cycle, or is this just lining up for you?
No, I had the situation where I sold all my real estate for I moved to Tampa for a girl, wound up not working out. So like that's the reason why I sold. I would have just kept on buying. But the reason why I bought is that it was just like, I just read the book and it just happened to be COVID pretty close afterwards. The first house I bought with a 5.25 or 5.65 interest rate. And then the second house I bought was like a 2.1 interest rate, 2.15. It's free money.
So where did you get, because I know military don't make like exorbitants and
No.
so like where did you get the capital to start doing this?
I played a lot of video games, and like all I essentially did was like order out food, drink, and play video games, like work out. It's like I don't really have too many expenses, so I was able to save a decent amount. You know, you room with a bunch of guys in like $1,600 rent split 3 ways. Like you're pocketing the rest of the housing allowance you're getting. There's a lot of different ways we can go into that in regards to the military and how to like expedite your capital growth. But I had like 23 grand, and essentially to close the house was about 20. The first one was like about 23 grand. I had nothing left in the bank after I closed my first house. I actually had my first pay stub where it's like the wire or whatever. I did a certified check for the first one, and like my remaining balance was like $300. But yeah, essentially I just saved up all of my money, just like usually like doing like trying to be like somewhat smart with it, and sometimes investing in the stock market or yada yada yada, but mainly keeping my capital liquid so I'm able to use it. And then just bought a house with it, which was a complete shit show. But
Did you get any kind of like really good deal from the military? I think my cousin Jake, who just bought a house, he got like some kind of, I don't know if it's a discount or what it is for being a military member.
I did not for my first one. So you could use a VA loan, which essentially for your first house, you could put $0 down. I did not use that. The first house I bought was for investment purposes. So if you're buying an investment property, you can't use a VA loan. If you want to use a VA loan, or for civilians, FHA loans, pretty much the equivalent. It's a low amount down, but you have to be an owner occupant, so you have to live in the house. I bought it for an investment purpose, so I didn't. My second house, the first one I got in for 23. My second house I got in for 3,600, and that house was 4 times the value of the first house. So there are a lot of different tactics you could use as military to be able to work the system to be able to get in for a little amount of money.
So there's so many different asset classes like real estate, stock market, crypto is very popular now. Yeah. I don't know of any others that people our age would want to get into, but like why was real estate the one that you saw so much opportunity and went into?
I just read the book, and the book said buy houses, and I was like, sick, buy houses. I did no research. I signed my first closing documents. I signed shit-faced at a club at like 2 a.m. Like, and the closing was the next day. And I rolled up looking like a bag of shit. Excuse my language, but like rough. But I like did the numbers right. Yes, cause I had done a little bit better on that first deal, of course. But the main thing is that like you choose something, you do enough research to know a decent amount about it, and then you just start firing on the fundamentals that you learned. You're never gonna be an expert until you do it. So don't overanalyze things. But why I picked real estate, it's also cool because now looking back on it, you could lever so much money. Like if you're doing an FHA loan, 3.5% down. So like if you have, let's call it 3 just for number's sake. If you have $3,000, you can buy $100,000 house. If you have fucking 10 grand, you can go buy like a 300,000. It's stupid. The amount of
Well, there's no $100,000 houses in our area, I'll tell you.
No, not here. I thankfully was in Norfolk, Virginia, which like my first house was $102,000.
Wow.
I put 23 down, and my loan was like 77. My mortgage payment was like $500 a month.
Is there any like area of the country, if you're gonna, you said I think you might get back into it in the future, like where you would choose to do it?
That a lot of people are like, where's a perfect place to invest? My personal thesis, you can go find the best place ever, but people make money everywhere. And yes, there's some places where it's way too expensive for you to get into. Completely understand that. If you live in Bergen County or you live in California, Orange, like if you're in those places, you just can't afford it. But if you're in a place that you could afford, just fucking invest there. Like you're gonna learn a lot. You're probably gonna get your leg cut off on the first deal. If not, like you'll break even. Sometimes you make money. But do that. Like right now, if I'm gonna go invest again, I'm gonna go invest in Salt Lake just because it's right there. And I have a plan for that, but people make money everywhere. Don't think that your market sucks. If you can afford it, start buying there. Everyone makes money everywhere.
I think I heard you mention on another podcast that you had homes in like a bunch of different states.
I had homes in, I guess, 3 states.
how are you able to like manage not being there? Like how easy was that to do?
I mean, it's pretty easy. It just depends on how you're able to handle operations and what your background is. The first two I bought were in Virginia, and then I was supposed to move to Connecticut. Navy kind of screwed me, wound up not moving to Connecticut. So before I had moved, I was like, I wanted to have properties there. So when I get there, I have a portfolio. So I bought like 3 houses without ever looking at them. I went there on closing day to just like look at them. I took a picture outside with my thumb up, like sick. But in regards to how difficult it is, if you do your research and you have a system, mainly I would suggest to read a book and take someone else's system. Never try to make something else yourself. Make something up yourself, it's stupid. And if like, what's your risk tolerance? Me, I have a pretty high risk tolerance, mainly just because of like my prior work and like how I live life now. If you're really risk averse, like you might be very stressed doing long distance real estate, that might not be the best option for you. If you're okay with managing teams, having high communication, you have your system set up, yeah, you could do long distance real estate investing, but it just depends on the person. Everything's possible, but yeah.
I mean, what you're talking about, the military had to be like massively helpful in organizing that, structuring that, running that, right?
I think so, yes. It just depends on what level of the military you were on. I don't think it helped too much in regards to actually operating the business. It definitely did help in regards to the organization aspect of like keep your shit organized, because there'll be a lot of files and a lot of documents, a lot of stuff for taxes, and a lot of money's in and out that if you're not tracking, you're going to get gypped. That's just how it is. People aren't always great, especially if you've never met them before and you're long distance. Yeah, you need to keep track of your numbers.
Do you think that's a great off-ramp for the military? Because that's something I worry about with my own family members. Like, I feel like a lot of people that come from the military struggle to go back to like a normal lifestyle. Like a lot of people struggle. So it's good that you found an easy way to like transfer yourself out of that world. Is there any other things you'd recommend?
There's no always. I make it seem a lot easier than it was. Getting out sucked. In regards to like preparing yourself financially to get out, like nothing to do with like your personal, you need to figure it out before you get out. There's a lot of different programs. The Navy, I guess every single branch of the military and government has this thing called Skill Bridge. So you're able to have a internship before you get out. That's what I would suggest for most people. If you're on the investment sector, if you feel confident enough with your portfolio that it's able to sufficiently be able to sustain itself, right? Because before you have an income, your portfolio kind of shakes a little bit, like you at least inject money into it. You don't have a job anymore. Like you have bills to pay, like they're due every month. It's like, don't fuck up. But yeah, it's just a fiscally either get a job set up before you get out. Don't think that you're going to get out and find a job, like you're going to get fucked. And then if you have a portfolio, make sure it's good to go. But in regards to your personal and your mental, I mean, I thought I was good to go. I got fucking rocked for like a year straight in regards to getting out and like resuming normal life.
Mm-hmm. So how did you get through that year? What helped you?
Well, I kind of screwed myself, right? So I got out the military and I essentially just sold all my real estate and I went out to moved out to a place for a girl. So essentially what I did, I had a life that was really, really structured around like my real estate, my business, and my Navy, and my job there, and then also like girlfriend and fitness, right? These were all in one circle, and those were my pillars of my life. I completely removed real estate. It's now business kind of gone, even though I was starting real estate in Florida, like my actual business gone. I'm leaving the Navy, all of my friends, all Virginia. Now I'm moving somewhere else. And in doing that, you start to lose different pillars of your life. And the girlfriend wound up becoming variable. And then now you essentially like, you lost your friends, what you used to do. I got injured after running a 200 miler. So like there was no training anymore. You base yourself and your personality off of the things that you do and your habits. And if you lose all of your habits, you've essentially lost your personality. So it's pretty rough. If you get out of high school, you've never really had, like, you never survived on your own. All the things that you thought you knew are now all gone. like you're fucked. So from a mental aspect, you know, like I traveled the world for like a year or whatever and like did all the stuff, but you realize that the more stable things you have when you get out, the better. That's why I suggest like line up a job, like understand that the first year, if you don't have your shit together, like if your personality rides only on military, like you're fucked. Because when you get out, that's all gone and no one gives a shit.
See, this is something that kind of pisses me off because like these people are sacrificing lives for our country and then we're not giving them the opportunity. Like I feel it's not on the military members, it's on the, you know, the government and the military, like as a unit, like they need to have some kind of system to help people.
They do. I think that they do
not
have,
working, whatever.
they have a lot of resources. I also think it's half our fault because we're just a bunch of fucking egomaniacs who are like, I don't need help. And then for like my standpoint, like I had a good setup when I got out and like I had just like setting up to get out. I had a skill bridge internship that I did, right? So I was an agent on a commercial real estate team. I could have went to any of the commercial real estate brokerages because they were like, how the fuck does this 24-year-old know all this stuff and is already investing himself? I got offered, it was like $160,000 a year job in banking that like you needed like a master's for. I had no degree. Like I had all these avenues that would have provided stability, that would have provided all these things because I prepared for it when I was getting out. But I said no to all those things and moved out to Florida for a variable, which isn't anyone's fault. It's just like, that's just how life works. But you need to understand that if you're jumping ship, that like you can drown. Like it is possible. I think that there are enough resources for people to be able to help themselves. They just gotta want the help. And then also like you gotta set your, like there's so many options for you to set yourself up. If you're just lazy and go out every single weekend, like you're not doing skill bridge, you're not investing anything, you're not lining up a job when you get out. Yeah, you're going to be screwed when you get out.
And like we said in the beginning of this, there's a yang of life. If you took that $160K job, you wouldn't have had any of these experiences probably. You would have been stuck in wherever that was.
Yeah, I'd have golden handcuffs. I'd be a banker, showing up with a suit, no beard.
Yeah. So I saw you describe yourself now as an adventurer or wanderer. Maybe since you've settled in Salt Lake City, that phase is over, but
Kind of.
So let's get into that phase. So like, where did you go? What was your, how'd you decide when it's time to change location? I saw you bounced around a lot, so.
I did. When I first got out, I had like a bunch of credits on Air Europa, which is essentially an airline that goes to Europe. So took a one-way trip to Europe. I went over there. I did like Italy, Spain. I guess I did a little bit of France because I was in the Pyrenees Mountains and you kind of cross over a lot. So I did that for about a month, kind of just traveling, staying in hostels.
All alone?
So yeah, almost everything I do travel-wise is usually always alone. I did that for about a month, running trails. I tried getting this record that this really, really good runner has, almost died in the side of a mountain. That was pretty funny. Dude, it was wild. I got stuck on an ice shelf on the side of a Dolomites mountains.
Wow.
But did all that, came home. I bought a van right before I had left. After I essentially bought a van while I was in Florida, finishing up a bunch of flips and construction gigs I had. Drove that van from, where did I buy it? Somewhere in the middle of the country. Drove 1,000 miles back to Jersey, dropped it off there, flew to Europe, came back, got the van, drove all the way out west to Arizona. When I got to Arizona, I helped a friend run the Arizona Trail. So essentially from the bottom of Arizona, the border of Mexico, all the way up to Utah. Met a lot of people through that. Traveled around more after that. Went to Vegas, went on a gambling streak for like a month and a half, 2 months. That was fun. After that, helped a friend run across the country. Did that, so like raised like over $500,000 for charity doing that. Left there, went out to Arizona, did another 250-mile race with friends over there. Did another 300-mile race in July through Utah. I helped someone run across. I did so much shit.
So I want to get into the running because I know it's so much part of the life. But I feel like I'm a very I plan so much. I think about the future so much. How are all these moves being made by you? Are you just seeing an opportunity and taking it, or are you thinking about your next step and then is everything organized?
I'd say it's organized and not organized. I know, at least I knew that, like when I finished like Europe was completely spontaneous. I was like, I knew that I wanted to go to the Dolomites and try to get this record, and then everything else is up for grabs. I was like, all right, I'm gonna go to Madrid today. All right, I'm gonna go to Barcelona. I'm gonna go to this. There's this hotel I found that was $30 a night in the middle of the Pyrenees Mountains. I was like, I'm gonna go there for a week.
That's so cool. Should have vlogged that whole. It would have been sick.
I have a bunch of footage. I didn't do any content with it back then. Then I knew when I came back, like I had to help my friend out in the Arizona Trail. And then after that, I was like, all right, I guess I'll just wander. Like there's some like different national parks. I'll go hang out there for a while. Yeah, I kind of just like when I get bored of something, I was like, all right, like what can I do like the next 2 weeks to a month? There's not really much of a schedule past that, especially when you're living in a van.
So, what got you so into these long runs?
I stumbled into it. This might be a little long-winded story. I stumbled into it after I finished all my selection programs and I got assigned to that SEAL team. Things were going like really well. And I learned through selection processes that I learned a lot when things were going really shitty. Like really, really shitty, you'll learn a lot about yourself. So I decided to do like a little kick in the nuts. So I got off of I think it was like an 18-day deployment on a sub on like the 24th of June. And I signed up for my first 50K. That was on the 29th of June. And my 21st birthday was on the 28th of June. So I essentially signed up for this race, like started the race shit-faced. Like it was a night run. So like I started at 6 p.m., like finished, I think almost at 1 a.m., like hungover, hated everything. But like I learned a lot. And then I kind of just did it every 6 months or so to keep myself like a little kick in the nuts. Like I'll do a 50 mile or 100K, kind of just do it off the couch. Like I really like hammer myself. And after that, I just met a lot of friends and it kind of just became a thing that I did. When you're running up a mountain at like mile 80, that's a lot harder than making 150 cold calls, or it's a lot harder than doing the 36-hour work session because you need to get some business system set up or you need to learn something. That's like it. A lot of voluntary hardship makes involuntary hardship a lot easier. So like any sort of deaths or any sort of troubles that you have in life become easier. And then also like it makes all the required hardship, like your business or your job, also a lot easier. So I just voluntarily do.
So that line that you just gave, voluntary hardships make involuntary hardships easier. I heard you say that, and that connected with me, and I even wrote it down here. Such a true statement. Like building a callus in the brain to be able to go through difficult times. It's such a valuable skill that I feel like a lot of people either don't even think about or underestimate building that up, and like the value that you can gain, because it applies to everything you do in your life, you know? So no matter what you're trying to accomplish, it'll help you in like basically everything. So that's so true. And it's funny, I feel like Joe Rogan says it all the time, and that's why he does those ice baths. No ice baths for you? I've never done.
I had one in Virginia. I sold it before I went to Florida. We have one in the backyard. It has a leak in it, so I've been using it as an excuse to not go in it. Like I should. I've just been soft.
Even though that thing seems, I don't know. That's
It's pretty horrific.
Yeah, I've never done it, but I could imagine.
You should do it. There's a creek somewhere out here. Go to the creek, dude.
The polar plunge. My dad always does that every year.
Horrible.
So I like running too. I actually found out later in life that I actually really enjoy running, like even after college probably. I mean, I played sports my whole life, so that was kind of exercise I got. And then I got into lifting throughout college. But I don't know, for some reason I just enjoy running so much more because you can get into this kind of like Zen type of like just like nonstop. You got one objective. Your brain can just like unfocus on everything else in your life.
Yep.
Which I feel like lifting you don't really get because it's like start and stop, start and stop. Running, it's just like one thing. But I've never, ever, ever even attempted to run as far as you have.
Well, I mean, like I mean, regardless if you're running far or you're running short, that's why like also you're talking about like having to focus essentially on like that specific task. There's no other tasks around you that you need to focus on when you're running. That's why I like trail running a little bit more than road running. Like you don't fucking focus, you're just spraining your ankle and just like fuck yourself up. So like that concept you're talking about of just like, I have to dial in.
I also feel like when I run and I'm not trying to like push myself, I'm just like leisurely, like I feel like I can think like more clearly, and I have the best kind of breakthroughs in thought while running. Have you experienced that at all? Or
Yeah, especially when you do like no headphones. there's some sort of technical medical thing with it, but essentially like you're getting more blood flow to your brain.
Andrew Huberman.
Yeah. I do need a Huberman on here. But essentially I think it's like a blood flow to the brain. And the fact that like you're not focused on anything else. Yeah, I can go on a tangent with that, but.
So what's your favorite run story you have or event?
Favorite run story? Oh God.
You said you got trapped somewhere that you already brought up. Thing.
Oh, in the Dolomites? Is that what we're talking about on the side?
Yeah.
So essentially, there's this this trail called Alta 2 in the Dolomites. It's like 94 miles and it's 42,000 feet up and 45,000 feet down. So essentially, it's like straight up, straight down, pretty much the whole time. And I was going to Europe, and I was like, oh, this would be like a cool thing to try to get the record for. Like I'm in pretty decent shape. Like I just finished a 200 miler like a month and a half before. And so I bought like $50 worth of gear on Amazon for it, like not prepared in the slightest. And it was the end of the season. Like most of these huts that they call refugios, they're on the top of the mountains where you can get refuels and stuff. Like we're all starting to close. Like it was the last couple days of the season. Turns out it gets really cold when you get up to like 10,000 feet. That was the highest I'd been at that point in my life. So there was essentially this, it was about 1,500 feet in a half mile. And if you've never done that before, it's essentially like a straight up cliff. And it had snowed, and that during the day it was like 60 degrees, but at night it would get down to about 20. So it melted and like got a lot of water running down it during the day. And then now it was like 2 a.m. So it just froze into ice. And I only had crampons, those ice spikes that you put on your shoes. Turns out you need like a pickaxe for that steep. So I went up once without the crampons and got about like 15 feet up and then slid down. Okay, I'll go put on the ice spikes. Never used them before. Like just bought them on Amazon. And then I got up like 200, 250 feet up, like getting pretty far into this climb, and then just slid all the way down.
Oh my God.
And to put in perspective, it's like you're like coming through a mountain. There's like a valley here, and you're going up this cliff, and there's like a drop off. It's like 500 feet, 1,000 feet on each side. And like the only reason why I stopped, there was a boulder at the bottom. I just slammed into this boulder. Dude, if their boulder wasn't, like I would have just slid off.
That's insane.
It would have sucked. And like no one would have figured out to call for anyone for like 5 hours. Because I told them, I was like, if I don't move for 5 hours, I call someone. Because I had a tracker that people could see. Yeah, and then I just got stuck there, and then I couldn't move because I was on the side of this ice shelf, and I started getting hypothermia. I also like right before I started that section, I had no water for like 6 hours, and I eventually found this little stream, fell into the stream, so I'm also soaked. It was horrible.
Oh my God.
I hated it. I remember I sat there, I was like, this is stupid.
And yet
dude.
you still do the long runs today.
Yeah.
Didn't stop you.
I was just like, this is a dumb way to die. And I eventually like hobbled out towards mooring, and this like European's like, oh yeah, need pickaxe. I'm like, yeah, dude, I figured it out.
So there's not like a lot of people running alongside you?
On that, so no. So there's like races where you have like people that like sign up, and there's like this thing called FKT, so fastest known time, where like a specific trail that could be popular, people just post their times on like what they got with their proof of like I think their run.
Map my run?
Essentially like map my run, so you export it into like a TRX file or something like that, and it has like all of your splits on it. But yeah, so it was just me, and it was fucking 3 a.m. No one's there, and it's the off season. Yeah, it was stupid.
How much training are you doing in between these long runs that you do? Like to be able to do a 200-mile run, like do you have to run 10 miles a day?
It kind of varies. Depends on how prepared you want to be. I tried running this race called Moab 240 with no training. I got like 80 miles in. So it depends on like how far the race is. But if like a 200, I think you can get away with like 50 miles a week. You're going to hate life.
So do you think that's because like you know the pain of it, so you're able to mentally push through? Like if someone tries that their first time, they're not gonna.
They're most likely not going to be able to do it unless they have very high mental fortitude. But like physically, you should be able to make it. Also with that training, you'll learn how to like eat and how to hydrate. My first 200, I rolled up with no training. I had not tried any food. I had no electrolytes. I wore no skin cover for a hot race. Like I was wearing a black t-shirt in like a hot, it was stupid. But yeah, and 50 miles a week. Usually I'm doing about 80 miles a week, about 20,000 feet of gain and loss. And then, about 4 lifts, about 5 to 6 hours of lifting a week. So total volume, I don't know, like 24 to 30 hours a week for like peak training. Usually normal about 12 to 18 hours a week.
Do you have any good, if people are watching this and they like want to learn more about running, they're getting into it, like stuff that you watch on social media or books or anything that you found useful in that realm?
Depends if you want to go the free or the paid route. Free route, you could just follow people on Instagram at like just like a trail runner.
Any good ones pop to your mind? Besides you?
I'm a terrible personal life friend.
Who makes good posts? David Roche. David Roche and Killian Jornet. You'll probably learn a lot from them. Don't act like you're going to run as fast as them. I don't know if you know who those people are.
No.
They're absolutely fucking psychopaths. Yeah, I'm trying to run Leadville this year. David ran Leadville in 14 hours. I hope to run Leadville in 24 hours. So like those people are really fast. But also just trial and error. I would suggest for anything, get a coach. Like just suck it up, get a coach, pay the price for like the first month or two, get as much information as you can out of it. And then you don't have to have the coach anymore. But like Tom Brady has a coach. Everyone who's high level has a coach. And there's a reason why.
Yeah.
That like just cuts out all of the learning curves. Like you could just immediately get all the information. That's what I would suggest. Get a coach.
So another run that I saw you did that I wanted to bring up was the Antarctica 100-mile world record.
Yeah.
What happened there? How'd you beat the record? You had to train to be able to make a world record, right?
Yes and no. I did a 300 miler in July. So that Antarctica world record was in November. I seriously injured myself in July, compressed disc, scoliosis, bucked up my hips, and just like destroyed my body doing this 300 miler. So I had to take off essentially like after that until I started training for the run in the end of September was when I started to run again. So I had about a month.
So when you're that injured, what makes you go back to running? Why is there?
Why it's you learn. I do really hard things specifically for the mental benefits in regards to being able to endure more and also that it makes everything else easier. And you learn a lot about yourself. You don't really know about yourself. You don't know like what you're made of until like you put yourself in the shit. Like some people like to say from a workout perspective, like, oh, I'd be able to do this or that, or like, yeah, I'd be able to fight in a war. It's like, if you ever like carried like a, like 20-pound gun with like a bunch of weight on your back for like 12 hours on a rock and like had to fight someone, like that's hard. Or from like a normal perspective, like talking about cheating, like people being unfaithful. Everyone says they'll be faithful to their girlfriend, but if your girlfriend's a 5 and there's a 12 hitting on you, people break pretty quickly. So you don't really know who you are until you're in that scenario. And I felt the more that I'm able to put myself in that scenario, the more I grow. So
I mean, I just completely agree with that mindset. And I think what's also valuable in that is that I think people get mixed up where they think like your mental and your physical are disconnected. Whereas like when you push yourself physically, it helps you mentally, I would say even more than physically, which I don't think a lot of people necessarily relate. And it's like what you're saying with the running, and I know you did a fast, which I want to get into, but like I had a situation 2 years ago where I did a 16-week diet where I ate the same thing every day for 16 weeks.
Dude, that's savage.
I went from 206 to 177.
What did you eat?
So
Wait, 206 to 177?
yeah, I actually still do it now when I'm cutting in like the spring and summer, but I don't do it as strict. Like I did not cheat at all. But so my breakfast was 2 egg whites, 2 whole eggs, 3 chicken sausage. Lunch was salad with tuna or chicken. Dinner was white rice, veggies, and salmon. And then I had Chobani Flips and a diet soda for dessert every single day for 16 weeks. And I found okay, here's any diet advice for people. You got to find what works for you.
Yeah.
So like that's food that I like, and I found like
Okay,
I could
cool.
look forward to the meals and like especially dinner. I love the dinner with a little teriyaki sauce. It was great.
Okay.
But yeah, that was something I did, and the goal was. I mean, the physical goal is there, but the mental strength you get from being like, I set a goal and I'm going to achieve it, and it's a 16-week thing that you have to really stay up on top of.
That's a long, like people don't understand how long 16 weeks is
Yeah.
until you start it.
A third of the year.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah. So, like everything you're saying in that sense of like pushing yourself physically, I totally get. But I don't want to get away from this 100-mile world record because I want to hear that story. So, how did that actually go?
So that was a little bit of a shit show trying to get ready for it. The run was on November 7th, and I helped somebody run across Texas starting October 1st. So my runs were pretty broken up in regards to the build up and lead up to this. I got about 3 weeks during that Texas run of like foundation work. So I was just on and off running about 5 to 10 miles a day. Got up to about a 70-mile week by the end of that 4 week period. And then just like 2 hard weeks, like just on road. It's supposed to be a flat run before that. So I had about a 5.5 week training block. My ankle I started having stress fracturing it halfway through. So like pretty much every first 3 miles in my run. Well, it's like I was injured and I was like, I'm not good. Like if it was a normal race, I wouldn't have ran it because I was already destroyed. But I was like, all right, what am I going to get to go to Antarctica? Also, like we had sponsors for it, so free. That's never happening again.
Yeah.
So I wound up just pushing through that. Did pretty well. I essentially did a lot of practice runs for it of like exactly what I was going to do, which was run 0.9, walk 0.1 until I couldn't do that anymore, then run 0.85, walk 0.15. And I do that on my training runs, also with the same nutrition and everything that I would have in my pack during the run, just to prepare for it. I try to tell people always do what's going to happen on game day during practice, and it goes down really well. And showed up to Africa about 3-4 days beforehand, got briefed on what was going to go down, got out to Antarctica. Surreal experience. It's essentially like imagine Texas, but everything's just white, and it's like just as rugged terrain, just like all ice. It's not even snow, just like all ice and rock. There's mountains that are like 4,000 or 5,000 feet high, like in the distance, that are insane. The run went well. It was kind of a blur. It got down to like -50 with the wind chill. That was preposterously painful. Like there was a hill on the backside of the course, like a very slight hill. It was supposed to be flat. The course we wound up doing about 7,000 feet of climbing throughout it. Up just like this slight uphill, just like into a headwind, where like your face felt like it was getting stabbed. And I would wear like a balaclava, or like I guess like a little like neck warmer on my face. Like I would go from the aid station like out of the tent, and like within about 3 to 4 seconds, it'd be frozen completely. Like if you don't know anything else, like I can go on about that race forever.
I wrote down a few stats about it. 13,823 calories burned, 23 hours, 22 minutes, 57 seconds, 12,000 milligrams of sodium.
Yeah.
What was the hardest aspect of that race? And the sodium is the only number that I see, and I'm like, I had no idea how much that actually is. Can you put that into perspective at all?
I can. So that's what the hardest part about that race was?
Yeah. Temperature?
Yes and no. I think the hardest part for me personally, it's not even the temperature. It was the overall dread, like over and over again of like there's a 2.4 mile loop, and we would stop every 2 laps to go into the aid station, which was a nice warm tent. Dude, when it was like nighttime, it was like sunset for about 5 hours, and the sun was underneath the mountain. Dude, it was horrific. It's actually just like gray, like New Jersey gray, like a little bit of a sunset in the background, 50-mile-an-hour winds, and like nothing. Like it felt like it was never ending. It's the exact same course. Everything is white. There's no changing. Horrible.
dude, when you like would walk, like I would run outside, like the balaclava would freeze immediately and it would slightly go down. So like my nose would just like essentially just start like bleeding in pain.
See, that was pretty rough.
It sounds it.
That I guess was probably the worst part. Just like the consistent compounding of those conditions over and over and over again. Also, I didn't take a dump until like about hour 20, and I'd been farting the whole time. And I don't know if this is gonna be pretty gross, but like essentially, like when you fart like that, like shit particles get on your ass and like makes the worst chafe ever. And wiping after 20 hours of that.
Iceable.
No, it wasn't even, dude, it was like somebody got a blowtorch to my
Sandpaper?
sandpaper, and then like you fucking stop shitting and like your ass just seals shut from the blood, and like taking another shit afterwards, like someone you're literally like ripping. Oh my god, horrible. So that's probably another worst part.
Yeah, and you mentioned like the tents. Are there like people setting that up for you that are doing the race, or how?
Yeah, so at this specific part of Antarctica, it was a Russian base, and they had like containers, right, where we would where we had beds, which we didn't really sleep much at all. Everyone else did, but we did not. And there was like a big communal tent where they would cook food, and they had like a bunch of tables set up. It's about, I don't know, 40 by 80 tent. Pretty sweet. They just had like those like little like heat tubes that like kind of shoot out like flames to keep you warm. But yeah, I was able to stay there. We would go there for about 5 minutes every 2 laps. Towards the end, it got a little bit longer. We kind of realized that we were just gonna hit 100 miles before the record. Like we weren't gonna try crush it. We were struggling pretty hard. My friend that I was running with, Paul, was having sleep deprivation issues, so I had to run with him, which threw my running plan out the window. So then I started running slower, but like consistently slower, and none of the stops, which completely screwed me. Long story, but yeah, we kind of kept a consistent pace at the aid stations. And then in regards to nutrition and salt, you know what liquid IV is? So like, I wouldn't suggest using that product, but they're about 500 milligrams per like little portable pack or per scoop. I don't know how they serve theirs. So it's like having 24 of those. If I were to try to put it in like a food context, it's like drinking, I don't know, half of a soy sauce, probably a little bit more than half of a soy sauce.
Why is the sodium so important?
Well, sodium is important. Like your full electrolyte profile is important. Sodium is just like a good gauge to go off of. Essentially, sodium helps your body transport fluids that are going through it, so your body's able to absorb those fluids. Also, for your kidneys to be able to operate. If you're not having enough electrolytes, you're not going to get enough fuel to your muscles, and your muscles are going to start breaking down. And if your muscles start breaking down, I don't know why I'm going this far into it, but they'll start attaching to the ends of your kidneys, which is also known as rhabdomyolysis, and you start getting kidney failure. Been there, done that. You piss blood. It sucks.
You talk about this stuff so casual.
But essentially, you have a full electrolyte profile, so there's 7 different electrolytes. I'm not going to go into that, but usually you just base it off of sodium, and most electrolyte supplements have that full profile, and then you make sure that you're covering all your bases so you don't go into kidney failure and your muscles continue to work.
Dude, I really like this conversation because like I'm super into the nutrition side of stuff, and actually my whole life I get migraines, exercise-induced migraines when I push myself too far. So I've been trying to figure out like how I can fix that and what I need to do. But I haven't found it. Only happens when I severely push myself like really hard, and also after I've like taken a break. So there's some kind of like, I don't know, thing going on there.
What kind of exercising?
It could be anything that gets my heart rate up a lot. Like it could be lifting, it could be running, it could be anything.
Okay.
Happened my whole life. I brought it up to doctors. They're like, there's never really an answer. I mean, I never.
For what? Is it like for a specific period of time, or is it like immediate onset?
It's pretty immediate. Like if I stop exercising, I'd say within an hour I have the visual aura. I don't know if you've ever gotten those.
I've had cluster headaches for a while.
Yeah, and then like probably within an hour after that, I get the migraine, and I've thrown up. It usually lasts, could be like a couple hours to like the whole day I'm done, but by the next day, it actually does linger. Like I'm basically back to normal the next day, but I am like a little off, and then I'm fine. But
I don't know if this is going to be a solution for you, but do you keep track of your electrolytes and your sodium intake? No. Oh, you got to be doing that.
yeah,
I would suggest you can get a sweat test. You can do it at home, or you could just go to a place. So you put a patch on you, you work out for an hour, and it tests how much sodium you lose per hour.
I do sweat a lot.
Right? So like, okay, so if you're a big sweater, that's going to be like another pretty big sign as well. And then that's for exercise. Also, it depends on like what the temperature is. So if you do it in the middle of summer, you're probably going to sweat a little bit more than like in the winter. But like my sweat rate is like 850 milligrams per liter. And then I usually take about half of that during like normal days. Like if I'm drinking a liter of water, I make sure that I have about 400, 500 milligrams of sodium with a full electrolyte profile to be able to do that. And then if you want to do it for exercise, if you just weigh yourself before and after your workout, you'll be able to find out how many liters an hour you lose. So then you're able to get that liters per hour, and also how much sodium or full electrolytes you're supposed to have per liter. You can now figure out, okay, this is how much I'm supposed to be hydrating for per hour of my workout.
Well, and I've thought about it in the past always as just drinking more water, but it sounds like you need to be doing more than that with the salt. And it's funny because I had two cousins who were Marines, and they told my brother when he was going in this past summer, like, get extra salt packets and eat them. So I mean, it must be a thing that's widely known within the military and the salt pack. But
I used to, when I was in dive school, you'd have like a morning workout, you do like morning classes, and you have lunch, and then it'd be a really hard afternoon workout in the middle of the sun. Like I would essentially pour salt into my hands and like eat it, like lick salt off my hands to get as much in as possible. Because if you don't, you just cramp.
it sounds counterintuitive because people think like, for a long time, like you drink ocean water, salt, it has salt, you get dehydrated.
You do.
But why does it help you then?
If you salt essentially, if you go over, going over is a rough day. You're gonna throw up a lot. It's essentially like, imagine having the spins after going out. Like that's what it's like having too much salt. But essentially, salt is helping your body absorb more water. So if you have the right amount of salt and you're drinking still the right amount of water, you're going to be able to operate a lot better. If you have too much salt and too little water, you're going to wind up throwing up, shitting yourself, rough day. If you have too little salt, you're going to wind up you could have rhabdomyolysis, you could have kidney issues, headaches, etc.
Got to be homeostasis, sounds like.
Yeah, it's a balance.
So the 14-day fast that you did recently, right?
Yeah.
How did that go? How did that come about?
I got really injured after the Antarctica one, where I showed up injured.
Theme with your runs.
Well, it's just been backstory on being injured before we go any further. I've been flat-footed my whole life. It's like no business running, and I never tried to fix it. During that 300-mile run, my orthotics were causing more problems than helping. So from like mile 80 to mile 300, I ran without orthotics, and I had never ran without orthotics before. I obliterated my body. Like from like the hips down, just destroyed it. So this past like 5 months has been a lot of me building an arch and building a foundation and getting my body back to being able to like not have flat feet, have correct like aligned hips. So now I'm not getting injured anymore. I'm running again, but hopefully, fingers crossed. What was your question again? I got on a tangent there.
What was my question?
Fasting. Oh, how did it become about?
Yeah.
So I was injured, not able to do anything. I needed to do something hard, like difficult. And I was browsing YouTube and saw Mr. Beast. You know who Mr. Beast is?
Of course.
Right. So he was trying to do a 30-day fast and got like 12 days in. And I was like, if this fucking guy could do it, like, I'm going to be fine. So I saw he had nothing. He had no electrolytes. He had no nothing. I was at least going to do electrolytes just because I was like, I'm not going to work out. I'm not going to like try work out with only water. I'm going to die. He had it 14 days, just electrolytes, 0 calorie electrolytes and water.
How are those 14 days like?
Oh, pretty bad.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talk about like what goes on during a fast, and what I found, everyone talks about mental clarity. You're gonna be dialed in all day long. If you have a decent diet, that never happens. Like
people who eat fast food or eat high carb lunches where like they feel like they're crashing halfway through the day, it's because that's how you're eating. So when you're on this fast, for the first 3 or 4 days, you should have consistent energy because your body's going into ketosis, is producing ketones and using your fat as an energy source. So like you just have a consistent energy source. So if you usually just don't eat really high carb lunches, you're gonna have the same energy as you would on a normal day. Past day 4 just gets really, really rough in regards to hunger. My hunger never went away. Everyone's like, oh, you stopped getting hungry. It's like, nope, I was hungry literally every second of every day for 14 days. I noticed that from day 5 to 9, my cognitive function started to decline around 2, 3 o'clock. By day 9, my cognitive function was kind of like ending at around 11 a.m. And in like days 12, 13, and 14, like wake up, get an hour of work done, and like I was useless past that. I was like essentially like you could actually feel like if I stopped hydrating and like stopped taking my electrolytes, like, you start dying, like straight up dying, like standing up, like full on, like can't see anything for like a minute or two. You start to feel feverish, like you are legitimately like, sounds terrible, like you are literally dying.
Did you have to like distract your mind? Like, how could you not? Because when I did my 16-week thing, and that's nothing like that, but I could tell my body was like signaling to me, like you have to eat. Like I would talk to people around me, and I'd just be talking about food. On my YouTube channel, I do like community posts. They would all be about food. Yeah. It's like your body is telling you like eat. So how did you like distract yourself from that?
I tried in the beginning, and I was pretty successful until about day 10, because personally, I try to limit my social media usage because it just burns through your fucking concentration. Like, dude, I doom scroll for like an hour. You've essentially just reset your concentration in 7 seconds. So I try to not do that for the first, week or so. And then eventually it was like, there's nothing I could do. So I would try to watch like long form movies or like long form YouTube. But like when it came to like day like 10, 11, 12, 13, like I'm like, all right, like I finished work for the day. I'm on the couch, laptop, like phone, chargers. I'm not moving.
Did you watch any food?
Dude, it was like half the things I watched. I was all day long.
I don't know if you knew who Frank the Tank is. I was watching his hot dog reviews the other day. I was watching Hell's Kitchen, Gordon Ramsay.
Yeah, dude.
I'm telling you, your brain is like, you need to eat. So I'm gonna put food like in your consciousness always.
That's all I do. I look up food almost all day long. Everyone's like, why isn't that torture? I was like, no, dude, I'm living through it.
You get secondhand, like, yeah, I relate with you 100%.
I know everything there is to know about Korean fried chicken.
Oh, I remember those days just watching food and being like, I can't wait to eat. I had it all timed out, so I like ate at the same time. I would just be like counting down the minutes, like, go eat this.
I have a question for you. Did you feel that you got annoyed at people that would tell you, hey, like, you're almost done?
I didn't tell a lot of people of like what I was actually doing.
Okay.
So no, I don't even think I got that feedback. I would say I think I was more irritable, definitely being constantly hungry, like have a short-tempered more so. But no, I didn't have that problem. I guess a lot of people knew you were posting about it while you were doing it, right?
Yeah, I was posting about it while I was doing it. And like family would be like, oh, like you're halfway there, only 7 days to go. I was like, do you have any idea how long it is to not eat for 7? Like, it's like, we're gonna stop saying you're almost there. Or people will be like, oh, there's only 4 days to go. And I was like, have you ever not eaten for 4 days?
Now, did anybody try to tell you like it's unhealthy? I'm like, don't do it, like stop.
Oh, I got a ton of that on social media. My parents were pretty terrified about it at first until I started getting like all the medical supplies to like, kind of check my vitals. So I had like a blood pressure cuff, glucose monitor, SpO2 monitor. I had like actual things to make sure I wasn't like dying. Which at times when I stopped drinking water, I'd be like, okay, my vitals are getting pretty off. Like we gotta fix that. But I got pretty bad backlash from Meta on it. I'm now fully restricted on Instagram and Facebook.
Really?
Yeah, it's like you can't. Like how some people like you have to search their name, like, and you have to like do it like by the character, or else you can't find them. That's me right now.
Still,
yeah. I put in like 7 appeals. I put in one for each video, and then I put one for my account for the not recommended. They said it's gonna take about 2 months to follow up on it. It's been about a month.
That sucks.
Yeah. It was like, it's funny because it happened at the very end. I think because essentially you're able to report people on posts, and then an AI goes through and then deems it good or not good. And then there's a series of that goes on. And then if it gets essentially denied twice, like you're fucked.
Yeah.
So that happened 7 times.
Mr. Beast can do it, but Rob can't.
Well, I think YouTube is good, and I get the concept from somebody who
Is their platform is sell advertisements. I don't think an advertiser like wants to be on a post that's like this person's not eating for 14 days, and then little old Jimmy over here who's like 13 years old decides to do it and then dies.
Yeah.
So like I get that concept, I understand it.
There should be an avenue where you could be like, all right, don't put any ads on these videos.
Yes,
You should be banning your whole channel. Oh, not banning, but shadow banning essentially.
it literally is I'm shadow banned.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand from both sides. I think that it is unfortunate. I get it. It's like, because it's not like other people are like, there's like, hey, here's a picture of it. Like, you can literally see me go from 204 pounds 2 weeks later to like 177.
Wow.
Like,
That's crazy.
it's like, you're just like, every day, it's like, all right, guys, I'm getting pretty thin.
Quick.
yeah. So people didn't like it. And a lot of people with eating disorders, like that's super triggering for them. So they got pretty upset. So yeah, it went under the suicidal eating disorder and self-harm guidelines of you're not allowed to do on Meta.
Damn.
So maybe I'll start posting to X. I'll like redo it.
Yeah. How was like coming off of that 14-day fast? Were you able to eat normal stuff like quickly? I think I've heard you have to like kind of go slow in it.
It's true. Fucked up pretty bad on that one.
Yeah.
I did a couple avocados, a couple eggs and stuff to start. And I was feeling pretty decent. And it's weird, like when you start like eating again, like you can literally feel like, because that's to go through your whole digestive system, like it's like an old car starting up. Like the rumbles and the grumbles, like holy smokes, it's happening. That was fine. And like about an hour and a half later, I was like, I really want a fucking steak. So I had about a pound of steak about 3 hours into breaking the fast. That made so much blood rush to my stomach, which essentially during a fast your blood volume decreases because there's no use for all that blood. You're not really doing much. Your body's trying to conserve energy. So it's like low heart rate, low blood volume. You throw in a bunch of food in your stomach, your blood volume doesn't just increase. Like you have to drink a lot of water for that to happen over multiple days. So like all the blood now rushes to your stomach. So like I also tried to do a workout that day. And now your blood's trying to rush to your extremities. And I was on a coaching call for like fixing myself in regards to PT and rehab. Like I'm full on blacking out. Like not like, oh, I stood up too quickly. It's like I'm full on blacking out. Like can't think, can't hear, like dying. And I was like, I hung up the call, like mid-call with his coach. And essentially like had to lay down. Like my roommate's like, dude, you look fucked up. Like I'm like completely pale. Essentially like I was just overstressing my heart. So that was stupid. Don't do that. Then slept for about 5-6 hours. Woke up, ate some yogurt, try to put more probiotic. You have probiotics in your stomach to be able to start digesting stuff. Turns out also there's another thing that can happen is that if you eat certain foods and you don't have any like probiotics in your stomach just can't digest it. And the food will sit there not digesting and then like calcify and then clog up your stomach and you'll die. So we fixed that. We had a lot of good things for the next day and a half. And then by day 3, I was having like 3 pounds of steak a day again. Like normal foods, like sushi, Mexican food. Like, yeah, did I shit pretty hard? Yep, that's going to happen. I also, for that long of fast, I don't know if this happens normally, but like, I might find this funny, like no bowel control.
I was going to ask you, why
Dude, standing in the kitchen cooking, shit myself. Like,
wait, while you were fasting?
no, after the fast, like when you start like, I could like, there's no like, it was like to be like 85, like there's no warning. It's just like poop. I remember my roommate's like, you just shit yourself? I was like, I don't know, dude, like I can't help it. So that happened.
What about while you were fasting? Did you like stop going to the bathroom after like?
I went on beginning of day 3. I went on day 1, day 3, and then like day 11. That was it. Right after I finished my fast, I like pooped out a bunch of like bile. I think I was like stuff that was just stuck in my digestive system. But yeah, that's pretty much it, the whole fast.
So you had some tough experiences with running, but you've gone back to it. Are you going to go back to fasting anytime soon, or no? No plans for that.
I did a fast beforehand. I think that the general consensus from the people who like put out the majority of the information is like do about 7 days of fasting per year, at least 72 hours per fast, to get those benefits of autophagy, which is essentially your body runs out of energy or things to use as energy, so it breaks down cells that are useless. Sometimes those could be cancer cells or dementia cells.
I have heard that that's been proven to be true.
It's not, there's not as many studies as there needs to be proven true, and they can't,
Correlation or something.
yeah, and like with the stem cell production as well, like it can't be proven true, but for stem cells, essentially there is this molecule that attaches to a stem cell that they're able to track, and that molecule increases. So I don't think they've been able to really prove in regards to how many stem cells are like actually quantifying stuff, but they do see a correlation. I personally just thought it was a really fucking hard task to do, and I was injured, so I just did it. But yeah, that's a fast.
Well, we are getting towards the end here. The tagline of my channel, Fosterfy, is bargain with life for a penny. Okay. I think you completely exemplify that throughout your life. I mean, the experiences you've had are like invaluable. Something I hope to do throughout my life. I haven't been able to travel or do any of the things that you will. Yeah, eventually, hopefully. But how were you able to kind of get in that mindset where you were able to detach from everything and like actually do that? Like a lot of people say they want to do it, like me, but they might not ever end up doing it. So how were you able to like really just go for it?
In regards to like traveling, like all these things that I do.
Well, it's like you almost just see an adventure and opportunity and you just do it. It's like, I don't know.
I think I learned from the beginning of doing business and runs that when I bet on myself, I win. And if I do lose, I learned from that experience, and I know that I put in everything that I needed to, and I don't have any regrets on it. So I think that from that ability to like, I bet myself on real estate, it worked. I bet myself in the Navy, I got the sick job, I got to do all those things. I bet myself here, I bet myself there, and it's worked. And I've done that monetarily and just from a time perspective as well. Also, I think it's greatly contributed to the people that I've had in my life that I've been able to use as mentors, regardless if they know if they're mentors or not to me, that when they've been able to give advice, I'm like, oh, that guy is where I want to be. So whatever I think, fuck it. Like, they're smarter than I am. They're going off past experience. Just like if I'm trying to tell somebody information, like it's coming from like if you follow this, it's most likely going to work. So I usually just come from like, hey, I'm stupid, learn from other people, and bet on yourself. It usually works. As long as like you know that you're going to put out.
Well, that's a great combination. It's like you have humility while being also confident in yourself. So it's a perfect mix there. For people watching, if you made it all the way to the end, thank you. Where can they find you? Are you going to be posting more on social media now? Maybe after the
With social media, I don't really post too often. You can find me. You better type it in the right way, Rob.Sembiante, or you can't find me. Or Rob Sembiante on Facebook. Send me a message. I don't know. I don't usually put out my numbers, so I'm probably just not going to do that one. I don't know. Yeah, reach out there. Pretty easy to find.
Well, I hope you do post more because your life is super fascinating. And if not, maybe my prediction to end this would be it'll be a movie one day. Sounds like there's a lot of cool stuff you've done, hopefully. Yeah, but thank you so much for speaking with me. I'm happy that we got this scheduled, and it's been great. I had a good time hearing your story.
Sure,
Thank you.
Thank you.